Many people often blasphemously and hilariously joke around that Morgan Freeman is God.
Dios mío.
Not only because of his pitch-perfect casting as God, but
one.
also due to his smooth, powerful, and yes, God-like voice.
So rather than try, I'm just going to ask you to do something else for me.
That one cannot even imagine penguins or nature or even God without hearing this man. His voice and his performances stand out when compared to other actors. And what's interesting is that most of us have only really known Morgan Freeman as an older actor, not striking a chord with mainstream audiences until he was in his 50s. But soon enough, his skills, screen presence, and yes, voice had Hollywood calling every time they needed a wise grandfather, or a grizzled vet from either side of the law, or any type of narration for any type of film. That persona has marked him as a welcome figure throughout modern cinema, despite the nearly constant cash grabs that pad out the unfortunate bulk of his filmography. There were some major controversies surrounding this man for sure, but it seems he has been given a bit of a pass. It looks like the public has quickly forgiven the man who became the widely accepted ultimate Hollywood earthly depiction of God. Like in those olden days, God would be represented as like a Renaissance painting, but now God is represented as this man right here. So yeah, I guess all I can say now is OMG, oh my god, and WTF. What the f***? So yeah, let's find out what the f*** happened to Morgan Freeman. But to truly understand what the f*** happened to Morgan Freeman, we must begin at the beginning, and the beginning began when he was born on his birthday, 1937, Tennessee. After serving in the U.S. Air Force and a successful off- and on-Broadway career, Morgan Freeman joined the children's show The Electric Company in 1971, playing the beloved character of Easy Reader, along with others too. After leaving the show, Morgan Freeman landed his debut movie, playing a prisoner in the Robert Redford film Brubaker in 1980, which would lead to a little bit more TV and movie work. And then came his breakout role in 1987 with Street Smart, playing a pimp to his first Oscar nomination, and being declared by famed critic Pauline Kael as one of the best actors working. After turning up as a drug counselor in 1988's Clean and Sober, Morgan Freeman became a true household name through a trio of movies that closed out the decade. He magnificently played a Civil War sergeant major in a masterpiece of a film called Glory. This was followed by playing everybody's favorite chauffeur, which was a character he played on stage in Driving Miss Daisy, which won Best Picture at the Oscars. And Morgan Freeman also got an Oscar nomination and a Golden Globe win. And then he played the principal in Lean On Me. So yeah, at this time, Morgan Freeman was finally a famous actor at the age of 52. Which many say, unfortunately, his age limits his characters, but I think it just means he gets the most interesting ones. Especially the role he got in 1992 with another Best Picture winner, Unforgiven. The chemistry that Morgan Freeman has with Clint Eastwood, it's just pure cinematic magic. You can really feel the friendship and the respect that these two old cowboys have for each other. And you absolutely love and care for this former outlaw who has a checkered past. And spoiler alert for a movie that came out in 1992, when Morgan Freeman's character dies, you absolutely feel that pain and, kinda understand when Clint Eastwood goes on a frickin' rampage. It's all for you, Morgan. So yeah, blooming late may have benefited Morgan Freeman. Like I said, to most, there is no young Morgan Freeman, except if you watched The Electric Company. But even then, he wasn't no kid. There's really only one image of him, and so only one sound, and all of it embodies a trusted, soothing figure, a sort of grandfatherly persona. And really, it's no wonder that at one time he was named one of the most trustworthy celebrities by magazines and stuff that make lists of things. Here is a man who came on the scene as deep, calm and confident, just like his voice. And as the decade turned, he voiced Frederick Douglass in the Civil War in 1990. You know, the Ken Burns one. And this, of course, introduced the world to what became his trademark role, that of the narrator. Whether guiding us through the cosmos, or through global conflicts, or through penguins, or even through traffic because his voice is in the Waze app, Freeman is probably the most recognizable voice anywhere, especially in documentaries. Steven Spielberg, of course, also knew this, and had his voice come in to explain everything in War of the Worlds, in what retrospectively feels kind of like a spoof of his voice work. The guy was even trusted with voicing Neil frickin' Armstrong. And there's a reason, as scientific studies found that he actually has a, quote, positive association with culture. Like, scientists studied how much people like Morgan Freeman. He had become omnipresent. Look, the guy played God, and absolutely no one took issue with it. Like, no one was offended. No religion. Everyone was just like, yeah, that's some good casting. I'm sure even God agrees. I'm like, yeah, that's who I'd pick too. And as far as that goes, Morgan Freeman has actually commented on the whole God thing. Here's a Morgan Freeman quote.
I think we invented God. So if I believe in God, and I do, it's because I think I'm God.
So there. But yeah, Bruce Almighty came out in 2003, and it was a huge mega hit, made lots of mega money. And then a few years later, the sequel came out, Evan Almighty, and it's not as bad as everyone says, actually. Watch it again. It's fun. Morgan Freeman once said,
"A good story and an interesting character is all I'm looking for."
And with that in mind, he just took on the 90s, making great, good, okay, and bad movies. He had flops, like The Bonfire of the Vanities, and fan-favorite blockbusters like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. This was followed by the co-lead in the masterpiece of a movie, The Shawshank Redemption, in 1994, which he got yet another Oscar nomination as the character of Red, who in the book that this is based off of is a redhead Irishman. But Morgan Freeman's so good that didn't matter and nobody cared. But most importantly, in The Shawshank Redemption, Morgan Freeman's character serves as the narrator, which was the first time he did so in a narrative feature film. So Shawshank did it first, y'all. And yeah, he was absolutely the soul of this film. He was the guide who taught audiences what hope really meant. He was also in the virus thriller Outbreak, which I rewatched during the pandemic for some reason, and another masterpiece of a movie, David Fincher's Seven, where he perfectly played his grizzled old detective type character. You know, yet another man on the verge of retirement and just wants to get the job done, and done right. And this film 7 right here, it actually introduced us to a new type of film noir detective type character, which helped elevate the genre and elevate his career. In 1996, he did a Keanu Reeves thriller called Chain Reaction, and in 1997, he would work with Steven Spielberg for Amistad. It's a great film that's brutal and heartbreaking, which Morgan Freeman decided to do because his ancestors were slaves. And he would do that old grizzled detective thing again with Kiss the Girls. Later returning to that character in 2001's Along Came a Spider. By the end of the decade and the beginning of the 21st century, it was like you could not enter a theater without seeing or hearing this man. And you know what? Nobody complained. 1999 saw Morgan Freeman in 2 disaster movies, perfectly playing the president in Deep Impact, and he was in an underrated, interesting action thriller that's set during a flood called Hard Rain, while he tried out the rare comedy with the film Nurse Betty. Then he just kept popping up in more pretty okay movies that were just fine, I guess, like The Sum of All Fears, High Crimes, Dreamcatcher, Levity, Guilty by Association, and The Big Bounce. The dude has always been a working actor. Morgan Freeman would then team up with his Unforgiven buddy Clint Eastwood again, and co-star in the film that would finally win him his first Academy Award, playing a former boxer that I think is blind in one eye, and he gives really good advice, and he even beats up a guy. It's really cool. It's probably the least depressing part of this movie, that's also, kind of a masterpiece. It's $1 Million Baby. And when he won that much-deserved Oscar, he was greeted with a standing ovation, earned not just for the performance, but his reputation in the industry. From there, he would play Lucius Fox in Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy. And because of Morgan Freeman's wonderful performance as Mr. Fox, this character has gone on to become quite a popular and beloved character in the Batman universe. A lot of people really dug the movie Red in 2010, and he would give us another Oscar nomination when he once again teamed up with Clint Eastwood for the film Invictus, playing Nelson Mandela, which was, perfect casting. It's rare that Morgan Freeman plays a real-life figure, but he actually did play Malcolm X in a 1981 TV movie, and there was more memorable work in the film Gone Baby Gone. Then Morgan Freeman kind of hit this plateau. He was just in a bunch of movies. He was in so many movies, some of which were pretty good, some of which were pretty bad, that it just felt like he couldn't move forward or even fall. He just stayed at his Morgan Freeman status. The dude was just pumping out movies like Unleashed or Edison, Lucky Number 11, 10 Items or Less, Thick as Thieves, Oblivion, Wanted, Now You See Me. He was all over that Has Fallen franchise. We can't forget the Lego Movie, Transcendence, Lucy, a bunch of others. He was in The Poison Rose in 2019, which holds a whopping 0% on those tomatoes at rotten.com if you believe tomatoes. There was the 2011 Conan the Barbarian movie that nobody remembers. But him narrating The Love Guru is probably the funniest part of The Love Guru, which isn't saying much. And then a lot of times Morgan Freeman would appear in movies that just kind of seemed, easy or light work for him, or excuses to hang out with his friends. But still, nobody cared. We still respected him as an artist. There was that movie The Bucket List with Jack Nicholson that was just sure, go ahead. And he did a family movie called Dolphin Tale and its sequel. Then he would just team up with every other actor who's in their 70s in the movie Las Vegas. Or Last Vegas. Oh, I get it. Last Vegas. I've seen the movie and I didn't even realize that until now, which means I'm stupid or it's stupid, or probably both. But really, at this point, we're just listing movies, because that's all Morgan Freeman does. He just works and works and works. The dude can be in any type of movie and be the best part of it. Yeah, Morgan Freeman has been in 4 movies in just 20 years. So many frickin' movies that, there's gonna be a lot of crap and the occasional masterpiece. But it did feel like this guy was just getting by on his name, which he filed for trademark in 2004. And yes, he also trademarked his voice. So you can't have it. So yeah, the guy is, a legend in the field, becoming a Kennedy Center honoree, and he was even given Lifetime Achievement Awards by both the AFI and the SAG people. The people who SAG. But then, in 2018, 8 women came forward alleging sexual harassment and misconduct, going back to at least 2012's Now You See Me movie. Again, this was the guy named one of the most trustworthy celebrities, so the allegations were truly shocking and kind of unbelievable. In an attempt to cover it all up, Morgan Freeman issued a statement that bore no responsibility whatsoever. He said,
I'm not somebody who would intentionally offend or knowingly make anyone feel uneasy. I apologize to anyone who felt uncomfortable or disrespected. That was never my intent.
More controversial sexual matters would be brought up in 2015, with an extremely shocking scandal that followed the murder of his step-granddaughter, who he allegedly sexually abused. There were even more rumors of Morgan Freeman and his step-granddaughter planning to marry. And then she was murdered, and her death would be later tied to Morgan Freeman by the killer's family, saying the actor was indirectly to blame for the scandal. And even though that's one of the most shocking, crazy, horrible things anyone has ever heard when it comes to Hollywood scandals, he prevailed through it all, and actually nobody gave a we all kinda just forgot about it or refused to believe any of it, and who knows if it's true or not, but anybody else, that scandal would ruin them. He just has those perfectly pleasant, nice grandfather qualities that the audience just soaks up so much that these allegations really didn't faze him at all. I don't really understand, but that's how it happened. And even though it's a scandal that nobody really talks about or even knows about, his career hasn't really done that well ever since, doing a bunch of movies that not a lot of people are very familiar with. Comeback Trail, Vanquish, Paradise Highway, The Minute You Wake Up Dead, The Ritual Killer, A Good Person, 57 Seconds, Special Ops Lioness. I guess his biggest, most recent hit is the Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard movie in 2021. But yeah, in the last few years, it just feels like Morgan Freeman's trying to pay the bills. His documentary work is still great though. I think I recently heard him when I was watching something about dinosaurs. And yeah, it was nice to hear him. Morgan Freeman was truly introduced to audiences when he was in his early 50s, when most actors at that time had already been stars for years, or were already relics of themselves, or had already given up on the dream entirely. But Morgan Freeman, he never gave up. He never stopped working, till this very day. We will always recognize that face, that voice, because hey, even science backs it up. And we must trust the science. But yeah, the guy, he's been doing non-stop narrations in movies and television for what seems like forever. And it does sometimes push him into the self-parody territory. But that self-parody, it's still freaking hilarious, and doesn't really ruin the other films. And yes, we have to admit that we would all be honored to have him narrate this video, instead of me.